Welcome to the Deep Dive. This is your daily current affairs deep dive. Specifically curated for you, the UPSC aspirant.
That's right.
Today, June 11, 2025, and this is part one of our exploration. We're diving into quite a stack of recent sources, pulling out those nuggets you need for preparation.
Exactly. And we've got information covering, quite a range: environment, infrastructure, some science bits, governance. Some of these topics might ring a bell, things we've maybe touched on before, so it's a good chance for a bit of revision. Others are, brand new development.
Right. And our mission, as always, is simple: help you quickly grasp the core info, see why it matters, and, connect those dots.
Let's get into it.
Okay, let's jump in. So first up, the sources mentioned Indravati National Park. Seems there's some news about security forces, anti-Naxal operations in that area.
Yeah, that's the immediate context, the sort of news hook. But for us, for the preparation angle, the real focus needs to be on its geographical and environmental significance.
Okay.
It's located in the Bijapur district of Chhattisgarh. That's key.
And it's not just any park, it's ecologically really important, isn't it?
Absolutely. Huge importance. It was declared a tiger reserve way back in 1983 under Project Tiger, so that tells you something.
Definitely.
And its name, that comes from the Indravati River, which is significant itself because it flows east to west and actually forms the park's northern border with Maharashtra.
Okay. Interesting boundary. What about the landscape itself? The terrain and connectivity to other areas? That always seems important for wildlife.
Good question. The topography is mainly, undulating hills, not super mountainous, but hilly terrain ranging from about 177 to, say, 599 meters above sea level.
Right.
And the connectivity part, that's crucial. It links up, forms corridors actually, with several other major tiger reserves. You've got Kawal in Telangana, Tadoba in Maharashtra, and Kanha in Madhya Pradesh.
Wow, okay. That kind of linkage must be vital for animal movement.
Absolutely vital. And speaking of animals, what about the biodiversity inside the park? What kind of forests, what species?
What are we looking at?
Well, the vegetation includes moist, mixed deciduous forests, some with teak, some without, and also southern dry mixed deciduous forests. Yeah. But the real standout feature, the thing Indravati is really famous for, ecologically speaking.
Yeah.
It's home to one of the very last populations of the rare wild buffalo.
Oh, wow. Okay, that is significant.
Critically endangered. So yeah, that's a big deal. Of course, you also find nilgai, black buck, sambar, gaur, tiger, leopard, chital, sloth bears. The usual suspects for that kind of habitat.
Sure.
But that wild buffalo population is often the headline grabber.
So a really critical ecological zone, but also facing these complex security challenges mentioned in the news.
Exactly.
Right. Speaking of environmental zones and complex projects, the sources also highlight the Kenbet Walink project. This one feels familiar, actually.
It probably is for many listeners, yeah. It comes up quite often.
And the recent news mentions concerns flagged by experts, specifically about the impact on the Panna Tiger Reserve. So maybe a good revision point for some of you.
Definitely. It's a really significant river interlinking project. The main idea, the core objective, is to transfer water considered surpluses from the Ken River in Madhya Pradesh over to the Betwa Basin in Uttar Pradesh, which is much more water scarce. And both rivers, Ken and Betwa, they're tributaries of the Yamuna.
And the stated aim is irrigation and prosperity for the Bundelkhand region, right, that drought-prone area.
Exactly. Bringing water to Bundelkhand. It's planned in phases. Phase I is the big one. It involves building the Datan Dam in MP. That's a pretty substantial dam, 77 meters high. And then there's a 221-kilometer-long canal, including a 2-kilometer tunnel, to actually move the water. Plus, there's a power generation component planned: 103 mW of hydro and 27 mW of solar.
Okay, that does sound like a massive engineering project. How much water are we talking about?
The plan is to use over 4,500 MCM million cubic meters of water. It gets allocated between MP and UP, mostly for irrigation, but also drinking water, industrial use, benefiting a huge area.
Right.
And phase 2 involves more components like the Lower Ordam, Kotha Barrage, and Vaina Complex projects. It's a whole system.
But okay, here's the crunch point mentioned in the sources. Panna Tiger Reserve, what's the issue there?
Yes, and this is the major environmental red flag that keeps getting raised. The Dadhan Dam, the main dam, is expected to submerge nearly 6,000 hectares of the core area of Panna Tiger Reserve.
6,000 hectares, wow.
Yeah. Prime tiger habitat. So the impact assessment expert reports, they consistently point out this is going to significantly disrupt wildlife habitats, corridors. I mean, it's a critical tiger landscape.
It really puts that whole development versus conservation debate into sharp focus, doesn't it?
Absolutely starkly.
Okay, shifting gears quite dramatically now, from big infrastructure to, well, tiny discoveries. The sources mention a new species found in Meghalaya, Spathispina nuhi.
Ah, yes. This is always exciting, isn't it? A new species discovery. It really shows how much biodiversity is still, waiting to be found.
So what is Spathispina nuhi?
It's a new species of beetle found in the forests of Meghalaya, which are known for being incredibly biodiverse. The source even pinpoints the location, the Umran area of Riboy district, at about 781 meters elevation.
And it's a weevil, right? I remember reading weevils are a huge group.
Massive group, yeah. It belongs to the family Curculionidae. Over 60,000 known species globally. It's astonishing.
Wow.
And while, we often think of weevils as pests.
Right. Agricultural pests.
Exactly. Many actually play really important ecological roles, like pollinators, or maybe helping control certain plants, perhaps even invasive ones. We don't know yet for the specific one, but that's the potential.
So what's so special about this beetle that it got not just a new species name, but a whole new genus?
Ah, that's the really cool part. It's all in the name, actually, Spathispina. It has this very distinctive sword-like spine on its back.
The sword-like spine on a beetle.
Yeah, apparently so unusual, so unlike anything else in its subfamily that's Sutor hincinae, that the researchers decided it needed its own genus. Spatha is Latin for sword, spina for spine.
Okay, that makes sense. Very descriptive. And where are beetles from this subfamily usually found? Does Meghalaya fit the pattern?
The subfamily itself, Sutor-hincinae, has just over 1,300 species. They're found pretty much globally, but not in places like New Zealand, Oceania, Antarctica, southern South America.
Interesting exceptions. Yeah.
The highest diversity is actually in the Palearctic region, Europe, North Africa, parts of Asia, followed by the Oriental region, which includes South and Southeast Asia. So finding a new one in Meghalaya, that fits.
Right. It's in the expected zone.
Exactly. But it's the unique feature, that spine, that's the big news. They also have some general traits, these weevils, sturdy body, they can tuck their snout between their front legs, things like that.
Fascinating. A little beetle causing a big stir.
Yeah.
Shows what's still out there. Okay, from tiny discoveries to massive natural forces, we've got news on Fuego Volcano in Guatemala. Sources say authorities have evacuated people nearby because of gas and ash.
Yes, Volcán de Fuego. The name literally means volcano of fire. And it lives up to it. It's in Guatemala, and it is historically Central America's most active volcano.
Most active. Wow.
Yeah. Geographically, it's one of 3 big stratovolcanoes overlooking Antigua, Guatemala's old capital. And Guatemala itself sits right on the Pacific Ring of Fire, which explains all the seismic and volcanic activity.
It has a history of major eruptions, too, not just constant low-level stuff.
Oh, definitely. Records show over 60 eruptions since 1524. And tragically, a really violent one in 2018 caused 194 deaths, with over 230 people missing. Devastating.
That's terrible. So the current activity, while prompting evacuations, isn't on that scale, presumably.
Well, hopefully not, but it's still very active. The sources say small eruptions happen several times a day. Ashfall, pyroclastic flows, sometimes lava flows, lahar, so even smaller events pose a real risk, hence the evacuations.
Right, makes sense. Can you quickly remind us what defines a stratovolcano like Fuego?
Sure. Stratovolcanoes are composite volcanoes. They're the ones with the classic cone shape, right? Steep sides, often a crater at the top.
Okay.
They're built up layer by layer from eruptions of viscous, sticky lava, ash, rock fragments. Because that magma is sticky, it traps gas.
Leading to more explosive potential.
Exactly. More potential for explosive eruptions compared to, say, shield volcanoes with runnier lava. Andesite is a common rock type you find in them, and they're actually the most common type of individual volcano on Earth, about 60%.
Good to know that distinction. Understanding the geology is key when these events happen. And that news about Fuego, about disaster preparedness, actually leads quite nicely into our next topic, the Coalition for Disaster Resilient Infrastructure, or CDRI.
Yes, CDRI.
The sources mention India's Prime Minister recently addressed their international conference, which was held in Nice, France.
Right, and CDRI is a really significant global initiative launched back in 2019. Crucially, it was spearheaded by the government of India, with support from the UN's Disaster Risk Reduction Office, UNDRR.
Okay, and it's a partnership, right? Not just governments.
Exactly. It's a multi-stakeholder global partnership. So you have national governments, UN agencies, development banks, the private sector, academic institutions, all involved.
What's its core aim? What problem is it trying to solve?
The fundamental goal is to promote the resilience of infrastructure systems. Think roads, bridges, power grids, water systems, hospitals, communication networks.
The stuff society relies on.
Precisely. Making that infrastructure resilient to climate risks and disaster risks. The idea is, if the infrastructure holds up, societies can cope better during disasters and recover faster afterwards. And that, in turn, supports sustainable development goals like access to basic services, economic activity.
They seem to have a really ambitious long-term target, according to the sources.
They do. Incredibly ambitious. The mission, by 2050, is to influence a massive U.S. $10 trillion worth of infrastructure investment, both new and existing. $10 trillion, to make sure it's resilient to hazards and climate change. The ultimate aim is improving conditions for over 3 billion people worldwide. It really speaks to the scale of the challenge.
How is this global coalition actually governed? Who runs it?
It has a governing council with reps from all the member countries and organizations. They meet once a year. Then there's an executive committee that handles more frequent program oversight, meeting twice a year. And the day-to-day stuff is run by the Secretariat, headed by a Director General.
And funding. Where does the money come from?
It's based on voluntary contributions from the members.
Okay. And how many members are there now? And where's the HQ?
Currently, 46 member countries and 8 partner organizations. So it's got significant global buy-in. And importantly, its headquarters are right here in New Delhi, India.
Ah, highlighting India's leadership role.
Definitely. And its work really ties into those 4 pillars of disaster resilience you often hear about: mitigation, preparedness, response, and recovery. CDRI focuses heavily on the mitigation and preparedness side for infrastructure.
A vital international effort, especially with climate change impacts growing. Okay, let's bring it closer to home now, looking at essential national systems. We have an update on the Civil Registration System, or CRS.
Right, the birth and death registration system.
Exactly. New data shows about 8.65 million deaths, that's 86.5 lakh, were registered in India in 2022. And the sources note this is actually a decrease from the peak in 2021.
Yes, the CRS is absolutely fundamental for any country's administration and data collection. It's the system for continuous, permanent, mandatory recording of vital events, births, deaths, stillbirths, all under law.
What's the specific law governing this in India?
It's the Central Registration of Births and Deaths Act, the RBD Act from 1969. That's the main framework. It was actually amended fairly recently in 2023.
Okay.
It was first enforced back in 1970 to create uniformity across the country. And an important point for UPSC context, civil registration falls under the concurrent list in the Constitution, entry number 30.
Good detail. And who compiles all this data at the national level?
That's the job of the Office of the Registrar General, India, the ORGI. They collect the data on births, deaths, and causes of death from the chief registrars in all the states and union territories.
Why is having a robust CRS considered so important, beyond just counting people?
Oh, it's critical for so much. The vital statistics you get from this system are essential for evidence-based policymaking.
How so?
Well, think about it. You need accurate data to understand demographic trends, track public health issues, plan for schools, hospitals, allocate resources effectively, monitor if policies are working. It underpins so much sound governance and planning.
Right. Makes sense.
There's even mention of a CRS mobile app now, developed by the RGI, to try and make registration easier, modernizing the system.
Essential data for planning and governance, then. Let's shift now to, well, the really cutting edge of science. The sources highlight a new technique called magnetic isolation and concentration cryo-electron microscopy. Let's call it Magic Cryo-EM.
Yes, Magic Cryo-EM. It sounds like quite a mouthful, but it represents a pretty big step forward in molecular biology, specifically in how we visualize tiny biological structures.
What does it allow researchers to do?
Essentially, it lets them study samples that are way more dilute than before. The sources say 100 times more dilute than what was possible with standard cryo-EM methods.
100 times. How does it manage that? What's the magic?
Well, the magic part involves using tiny magnetic beads, really tiny, 50 nanometers.
Okay.
These beads are used to capture and concentrate the target molecules from a very dilute solution. So you're directly analyzing the targets while they're held on these magnetic beads. This concentration step means you need much, much less protein to start with less than 0.00005 milligml. Yeah. Extremely low amounts.
And there was another acronym mentioned alongside it.
DUSTER.
Right. Duster stands for duplicated selection to exclude rubbish. It's a refined data analysis method they developed alongside the magic sample prep.
Okay, and what does Duster do? It helps to better process the electron microscope images, particularly for capturing the structure of smaller molecules, which standard cryo-EM algorithms sometimes struggle to pick out clearly from the background noise.
So this magic cryo-EM plus Duster combination tackles some key limitations of the original cryo-EM technique.
Exactly. Standard cryo-EM itself is revolutionary, won a Nobel Prize, in fact.
Ah.
It involves flash freezing samples and shooting electron beams through them to build 3D models of proteins and other macromolecules.
But its limitations were.
Needing large amounts of purified protein was a big one, and difficulty with smaller molecules or molecules present in very low amounts in cells. Magic Cryo-EM and Duster basically make this super powerful visualization technique accessible for those harder-to-study targets.
And the potential applications. What could this unlock?
Being able to see the structure of these previously invisible molecules is huge. Structure dictates function in biology. So this could help us understand a whole range of fundamental biological processes, much better things relevant to health, disease, how cells work at the most basic level. It just opens up new avenues for research.
Okay, from visualizing tiny biological machines to the complex machinery of financial markets. The sources mention algorithmic trading.
Algo trading, yeah.
Specifically, there's news about SEBI, the regulator, announcing a settlement scheme for stockbrokers who might have dealt with unregulated algo platforms. This might also be a topic you've come across before.
It's quite likely. Algo trading, or automated trading, black box trading. It's essentially using computer programs that follow specific instructions, algorithms, to place trades automatically.
Right, trading faster than any human could.
Exactly. It merges coding with finance to execute trades based on preset criteria like timing, price, quantity, or, complex mathematical models. It's already very common in India, used by big institutions, and increasingly by retail investors, too.
And the arguments in favor are usually speed, efficiency, removing emotion.
Yeah, those are the main points. Potential for profit through speed, making markets more liquid because there's more trading activity, and making trading more systematic, less prone to human emotional reactions like panic selling or fear of missing out.
But there are risks. The sources specifically mention one significant risk.
Yes, the risk related to black swan events. This is crucial.
Explain that a bit.
Okay, so algo trading relies heavily on historical data and patterns to build its models and predict how markets should behave. But the real world, especially financial markets, can throw up completely unexpected, unpredictable disruptions events that are way outside the range of what historical data would suggest is possible.
Those are the black swans.
Exactly. Sudden, unforeseen market shocks. Because the algorithms aren't programmed for the truly unprecedented, these black swan events can trigger chaotic trading, potentially leading to massive, rapid losses. It's a reminder that even sophisticated tech relies on assumptions about the world that might not always hold true.
Powerful technology, but vulnerable to the genuinely unexpected. Interesting. All right, finally, for this part of our deep dive, let's touch on culture and history. The sources mention a Mahakumbhabhishekam ceremony performed recently at the Sri Padmanabhaswamy Temple in Thiruvananthapuram, apparently the first one in 270 years.
That's right, a very significant event for a very significant temple. This is, of course, the major Hindu temple dedicated to Lord Vishnu, located in Thiruvananthapuram, Kerala.
And the city's name is linked to the temple.
Directly linked. Thiruvananthapuram means the city of Lord Ananta. Ananta is the serpent on which Lord Vishnu, as Padmanabhaswamy, reclines in the main idol.
It's an ancient temple, isn't it? What do we know about its history?
It's certainly ancient. The earliest definite records mention it around the 8th or 9th century CE, but it's likely much older than that. It's been rebuilt and renovated over centuries. A key figure was Martanda Varma, the Maharaja of Travancore, in the 18th century.
What did he do?
He undertook major renovations, and famously, in 1750, he performed a ceremony called Thrupadlidanam, where he symbolically donated his entire kingdom to the deity, Lord Padmanabha, and declared he would rule only as the deity's servant or agent.
Wow, that's quite a declaration. What are the architecture? What are its key features?
It's a really beautiful blend of Kerala's traditional style and the Dravidian style you see more widely in South India. The main idol itself is remarkable. Vishnu in the Ananta Shayanam pose, the eternal yogic sleep on the serpent Antasheshan.
Right.
The temple complex has a tall, seven-tiered of gopuram, or gateway tower, covered in intricate carvings. Inside, there's stunning stone and bronze work, murals depicting Vishnu's forms, other deities like Ganapati, Gajalakshmi, and there's a massive gold-plated flagpost about 80 feet high.
The sources also mention historical records and, of course, the news about its immense wealth.
Yes, two important points. First, the temple holds a huge collection around 3 million palm leaf manuscripts called the Mausoleum records. They date back to the 14th century and contain centuries of administrative and financial details about the temple and the Travancore kingdom. Invaluable historical data.
Incredible resource.
And second, yes, the vaults. Back in 2011, when some of the temple's underground vaults were opened under Supreme Court order, they revealed just an unbelievable trove of gold, jewels, precious stones, making it widely considered the richest temple in the world.
An amazing confluence of deep history, profound cultural significance, and extraordinary wealth.
Well, we've certainly covered a lot of ground today. From national parks and huge infrastructure debates like Ken Betwa.
Tiny new beetles in Meghalaya.
Right. And active volcanoes, global efforts for disaster resilience with CDRI, essential data systems like CRS.
Then cutting-edge science like Magic Cryo-EM, the risks in algo trading.
And finally, the history and culture wrapped up in the Padmanabhaswamy Temple. Quite a mix. It really is. And each of these points, drawn from today's sources, adds another piece to that big picture you need for your preparation. Seeing the connections or sometimes the contrasts, that's what this is all about.
Absolutely. And thinking about everything we've touched on, especially maybe the volcano, the black swan risk, even the unpredictable impacts of big projects like Ken Betwa on ecosystems.
Yeah.
It makes you think, doesn't it? Here's something to ponder. How do these kinds of unexpected events, these inherent unpredictabilities in both natural and human systems, fundamentally challenge our ability to plan, to build resilience, and really anticipate the future?
That's a deep question. Cuts across almost everything we discussed. A lot to consider there.
Indeed. We certainly hope this deep dive has been useful for you today. If you found it helpful, please do give us a like and subscribe so you don't miss our future explorations into the news that shapes our world.
Until next time.